quick, since we all know Anthony. Supposedly we're related somewhere along the line. I don't know, but
we haven't figured it out yet.
Figured out yet. She does a great job. She's a great researcher. She was emailing me at 11 o'clock saying I might make some changes in my presentation, but that just means that she really wants to do a good job, and she really cares about what she does. That's what that means. I have a nickname for her. I'm gonna go ahead and bring up the nickname. It's called Bossy Pants. I've been pulling more tasks by her than anybody else. But she's so nice.
Thank you, David. Well, you need a bossy pants around every now and then to keep you in line. Thank you all for coming tonight to hear the presentation. I really appreciate it. I've been doing genealogy for 50 years because the first document that I got, it was in 1974. I was 24 years old, so I have a birthday coming up very soon. So I just love it. I mean, I used to talk to my grandparents and try to find out as much as I could about them and their ancestors. And so I hope that y'all enjoy genealogy as much as I do. So for anybody that might be fairly new to genealogy, I just listed a few guidelines. You want to start a family tree or a timeline. You want to start with yourself. Your name should be the first one on there, and then start finding documents. Get your birth certificate. If you have a marriage license, get your school records. You might have a certificate from the hospital when you were born, anything you can find on yourself. And then you go to your parents and your grandparents, and you just keep going out. Then you want to talk to as many relatives as you can. You find the oldest relatives and talk to them. At this point, I am the oldest relative. I'm in the oldest generation. But find any relatives. Find second, third, fourth cousins, because they'll be able to help you a lot. You want to research in libraries and archives. You want to save as many records as you can. You want to join genealogical and historical societies, and you want to take a DNA test. So I like to set some genealogy goals, like what projects do you have in mind that you want to accomplish? Now, sometimes I'll get bored with one and I branch off and I work on something else. But one thing that I'm doing right now, I like to collect paternal and maternal haplogroups for my ancestors. It helps you down the line to say if these people and these different, with like the different last names, if they're related or not. And the Y test will provide you a list of matches that share a common ancestor on your direct paternal line, your father, his father, and so forth. And then the maternal test will provide you a list of your maternal lineage, and it's passed down from mothers to both sons and daughters. But of course, the sons can't pass it on to their children, just the daughters can pass it on. Then another project that I was working on that I'll be sharing with you tonight is to identify my third great-grandparents in my Maness lineage. And then another project, one reason why I wanted to take the DNA test was to discover if I have Native American DNA. I've wanted to be Native American since I was in third grade. And we studied Tennessee history and Native Americans. So starting with myself, my husband and I have been married 40 years. We have both taken DNA tests, and our sons also, through Family Tree DNA and through Ancestry. So you'll see that my husband Butch has taken the paternal test and the maternal test. So I have his haplogroup numbers there. And then I've taken the maternal test, and my brother took the paternal test so that I could have the Haney haplogroup number. And then our children, our sons, automatically got Butch's paternal haplogroup, and they got my maternal haplogroup. So they didn't need to take a test. They didn't need to take the paternal test or the maternal test. So my boys really wanted to find out where they were from, so that was one thing that got them to take the test. These are my parents, and my daddy passed away before people started taking DNA tests. So again, my brother took that test. And then the maternal haplogroup that's listed for my daddy, his nephew took the test. My daddy's sister's son took the test to get my grandmother's haplogroup. And then for, my mother has a paternal haplogroup listed. Her brother took the test. And then, of course, her haplogroup number is the same as mine. I have a sister and a brother, so you'll see our haplogroups there that came from our parents. And my sister, my brother, and my mother all have tested through Family Tree, and my sister also tested through Ancestry. So I wanted to work on my Maness family. My grandfather, William Maness Family, passed away when he was 36 years old at the Milan Arsenal. There was an explosion like about 2 weeks before the World War II ended, and he was killed in that explosion. So I never got to meet him. None of the grandchildren got to meet him. So the paternal haplogroup number that's listed for him is from his son taking the test. And then, of course, my grandmother, that's the test that I took. So they had 3 children, my mother, and then she had 2 brothers, and it was my Uncle Gil that took the paternal test. The only census record that they were all in together was 1940. And on that test, I know it's hard to see those census records, but it was in Chester County, and neighbors right next door to my grandparents were my mother's maternal grandparents. So you'll find out who's next door to you when you do your census records. And then on the other side of them, there were some neighbors, a black family, and their last name was Harmon. And they had a daughter who was 4, and her name was Rachel Louise. Well, that was my mother's name. And I think mother was 12 or 13. Mother was 13 in that census. So I wondered if that little girl might happen to have been named after my mother. So we have a family story of when a storm was coming, a bad storm was coming, and my grandmother didn't like to be home alone, so she took all her family over to the black family's house, and they were there during the bad storm. I don't know why, that may just made her feel better, but I would love to know if it was the Harmon family that she went to see that night. These are my great-grandparents, Henry Leander Maness, who was known as Lee Maness, and of course his haplogroup is from my uncle taking the test. And now my grandmother, I don't have her haplogroup number, but to get her number, you'll see her daughters, I have them listed in red. Any of their children could take the test, and I could get her haplogroup number. And the people in the picture on the far right, this side, is my Uncle Gil, and he passed away this year. He was my last uncle. And then the 2 next to him are my great-grandparents. So you'll see why I'm short. It came from my great-grandparents, the Manesses. And I'm the little girl that my mother's holding. Now these are Lee Maness's parents, Emerson Etheridge Buck Maness and his wife Nancy Elizabeth Bishop. They have 10 children listed here, but in the 1910 census it said that she had 9 living children of 13, so she had lost 3 children that I don't know anything about. And if I wanted to try to get her haplogroup number, her daughter Fannie Mae was the granddaughter of Diane Odell. You probably all remember Diane Odell was in the iron lung. And the last child listed here, Luther, has children who are my age. And so it amazes me that my second great-grandparents have grandchildren who are my age. So my brick wall is, who were the parents of Emerson Etheridge Buck Maness? That's what I want to try to find out. So I have my tree with the question marks. Those are the ones that I want to try to fill in. William Maness was an American Revolutionary War patriot, and they think that he's probably the main patriarch from all of the Manesses that live in the United States, and we have a lot of them in West Tennessee. So I want to try to get from Emerson Etheridge Maness to this American Revolutionary War patriot. So William Maness, everybody was named a William Maness, so it's very confusing sometimes. So William Maness Jr. had 12 children. He had triplets, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were very creative. There are 13 DAR members in my chapter who have, 13 DAR members who have proven lineage to William through Shadrach and his wife Celia Wallace. And 2 of William's sons died in McNairy County, Abednego and William Nathan. And I might be descended from William Nathan. And the ladies who are here visiting tonight are from him. This is the first time I've met them, so I'm glad that y'all came tonight. There are descendants, Maness descendants in my DAR chapter, and so we're all trying to hope that we can figure this out. So remember, one of the first things you want to do is try to connect with relatives. So on Facebook one day, I just happened to meet these 2 or 3 ladies that their last name was Maness. We had a few mutual friend, and they had posted a picture on Facebook, and I said, hey, I'm probably related to y'all. So we started comparing notes, and they were also descendants of Buck and Nancy Maness. So I started a Facebook group in 2013. We've been sharing information, we share pictures, and then since some of them are closer related, they knew a little bit more than I did. I didn't know that he went by Buck Maness, so it was hard for me to find him in a couple of census records because he used that name. So we've been helping each other out. We also helped 2 ladies who matched with us through DNA, and they were trying to find their biological fathers. So it turned out their biological fathers were Maness cousins, and so we identified their fathers for them, and that all worked out well. We're proud of that. So I took my family tree DNA test in 2014, and just to tell you a couple of quick things that if you happen to take that test, you can join group projects. So there's a group for the Maness family, there's a group project for DAR, Moore County, North Carolina. There are just a lot of different groups. So I've taken the Family Finder test and I've taken the maternal test through Family Tree DNA. So when I first took the test, I was the first one from my family to take it. And my second match was Thurman Dawson Maness. And he was a descendant of the Revolutionary War patriot William Maness through his son Abednego. And Morgan Jackson manages Thurman's account. So I emailed Morgan Jackson, and what a wonderful find that was, because he has done so much research through Moore County where the Manesses came from. And now since 2014, Thurman, rather than being my number 2 match, he's now my number 51 match. So from connecting with, and Thurman has passed away, but Morgan Jackson is managing his account, is very helpful. So Morgan told me about his website that he has. It's mainly about the Wallace family, but it's also about the Maness family too. And it has so much information on there. It shows who the patriots' children were, spouses, grandchildren. It's a very good website for anybody that has family from that area. So then I started trying to find Buck Maness's parents. So by the help of the cousins through my Facebook group, I found the 1870 census first. Well, you see, Jane Maness was 44 years old. The value of her real estate was only $200, and the value of her personal estate was $125. She had 5 children at that time, and the one that's listed as Amos E., my cousin said, we believe that that's actually Emerson Etheridge Maness, and it turns out that when you compare the next census records that is him. But Marital status is not listed there. So I don't know who the father of her children are. The 1870 census, I thought maybe he died in the war, Civil War. Also in the 1870 census, living next door to her is a John Maness, and I figured out, was her son. Then I found the 1880 census, and she has 4 children living in the house with her then. She has a new son who is 4 years old. They're all listed as single, and this is the last census that I find her in. And remember, the 1890 census was lost to fire, so we don't have that one. Now, my 4th cousin, who's also a Maness descendant, told me that there were 3 Maness women who were single mothers. So I kept that in mind then as I was doing my research. So let's go now then backwards in time to the 1850 census. So I found the 1870 census first, then I found the 1880. So I'm giving it to you in order of the way that I found it. So now if you go to the 1850 census, Jane Maness was 18 years old. She had 2 daughters. Clark Harmon was the census taker. Always look at other things on the page. You're either going to find a relative or some information that might be helpful. So Clark Harmon was the census taker. In 1860, she's 30 years old. I think they didn't know how to do math because she got a lot older then, but then in a little while, in one census, she only ages like 8 years, I think. So in 1860, she's living in Lexington in Henderson County. She's 30. She's listed as a tenant. The value of her real estate is none. The value of her personal estate, none. And you see, that census, they had initials, but I figured out who all of them were and listed their names there. Also, their name is written on this census record as Maynor, M-A-N-E-R, and that happened a lot. Maynor and Maness, they're all the same family. The children did not attend school, and they were very poor. In 1880, this is my census for Buck Maness and his wife Nancy. It says they had one. Actually, it says he has a daughter, but I know that it was really a son because Mother told me. And so then 1900 census, here they are again. They have more children. They had 9 living children at that time. In 1910, they are in Henderson County. 1920, they're still in Henderson County, and I have also on the same page are my great-grandparents with their older children. And then later, Lee and Ollie, my great-grandparents, moved to Madison County and had another daughter. So when you put all that together, these are the children that Jane Maness had. She had 9 children: Martha, Amanda, John, Albert, Emerson, known as Buck, Sarah, who was a special needs child, Mary, I don't know what happened to Mary, Clark, and Adam. So Adam, her youngest child, on his marriage license in 1899, he listed his name as Ad Harmon, not Maness. He listed his name as Harmon. And I don't find a record with him again after that. And the next year, his wife was actually living in his brother's home with his family. Now, Jane's first child, Martha, died in 1927. And on her death certificate, for father it says don't know, for mother it says Jane Maness. Clark Maness, the 8th child out of her 9, on his on his death certificate, it says that his father was A.D. Maness and his mother was Jane Harmon. Okay, so I didn't know who A.D. Maness was. It's like, okay, was he Abednego Maness who lived in McNairy County? Abednego was run out of North Carolina. He killed a man because this peddler swindled Abednego's wife out of some money, and Abednego said, if you do that again, I'll kill you. And the peddler swindled her again, and so Abednego killed him. And Abednego was in prison, and then they let him out in North Carolina. They said, if you'll leave North Carolina, never come back. So he came to Tennessee and moved to McNairy County. But he didn't bring his family with him, and I thought, I don't believe A.D. Maness was actually the father of Clark Maness. So that was confusing. And then there's Jane Harmon, when we know she's Jane Maness. So then Jane's second daughter, Amanda, had a daughter named Almeda. And when Almeda passed away in 1959, the informant gave Almeda's mother's name as Mandy Harmon. So we know her on the census records as Amanda Maness, but now she's listed as Mandy Harmon. So my brick wall, I figured out Jane Maness was the mother of Buck Maness, but who was his father? So my Uncle Gil took the Y-DNA test. He only matched with 18 men, only 18. Other people matched with a lot of people, but he only matched with 18. And then one of those was his first cousin once removed, who's also a descendant of Buck Maness. So all the others, it's like, why did we not get any more Manesses? Did they just not take the test? We have 7 who are Harmon. We have 6 who are Castle. 1 is a Jackson, 1's a Shelton, 1's a Stapleton, 1's a Stull. And I upgraded his test on Friday. They were having a sale that just ended. So I paid $119 to get him from 37 markers up to 111. And that's why I told David I might want to upgrade this presentation, because I was hoping that the results would come in, but I haven't gotten them yet. Now, you'll notice on there that my Uncle Gil and then the next person on the list, Danny, they matched on the paternal line, but their haplogroups are not the same. And I believe the reason is because my Uncle Gil had only taken the test with 37 markers, and Danny took the test at the big 700. So his is farther out, goes back farther in time, so he has a different haplogroup. So what do I need now? What am I going to do? How am I going to figure out who Buck Maness's father was? I need another Maness male to take a Y test, but I don't need it to be somebody that descended from Buck Maness. I need another Maness, like Emerson's cousin or somebody different. So some of you may know J.R. Maness. His name is Hardin Woodrow Maness Jr. He goes by J.R. And he and I matched through these different Scotts Hill families. We both descend from Charles Austin and Phoebe Ellen Woodward from Scotts Hill. And Charles and Phoebe Ellen have a daughter, Huldah, who married Jacob Little Maness. And so J.R. descends from Jacob Little Maness. Huldah Austin's brother was my ancestor. So J.R. is my 4th cousin once removed through the Austin and Woodward family. So he agreed to take a DNA test. Okay, on this test, I hope y'all can see that well enough. The box that I have marked over on the right side is to let you know if you have family tree DNA, you can click on that little box. You can pick a person off the list. You can search by name, haplogroup, or you don't have to even put anything in the search box. Just look at all your matches. You can pick a person, you can click on that box, and then click on in common with, and it will tell you everybody that you and that person both match with. So JR and I have a lot of matches through my daddy. I think it says 44. And then through my mother, we have 134. So JR matched with my mother, my sister, my brother, my uncle, and all my Maness cousins. So we know that we're Maness cousins, but we don't know how we're Maness cousins. So he took the Y test, and he matched on the 12 markers, he has almost 3,000 matches. On my uncle's at 12 markers, he only got 3 matches. What is happening that my family is not taking the DNA test? I don't know. But with JR, with all of his matches, he has a lot of Maness matches where my uncle only has his first cousin once removed. So Morgan Jackson, the one that I told you about earlier, who has the really nice website in Moore County, North Carolina, he contacted JR and me and asked, I manage JR's account, so he asked, is it okay if I upgrade him to the big 700? And we're like, yes, definitely. So now JR at 111 markers, he has 37 matches. And so hopefully my uncle will have more after I get this upgrade back. And I'm really depending on Morgan Jackson to give me more information. This is his website again. He has added JR to his website. He has the information about JR's DNA test. So I'm just kind of waiting now for Morgan Jackson to help me solve the puzzle, hopefully. So with everything that we have learned so far, I'm figuring, well, my family, even though we are Maness descendants, Jane Maness must have had children with somebody with the last name Harmon. So I start looking for Harmons, and I searched on newspapers.com and Google search, and wherever you can search, and I found Clark Harmon. Remember, her 8th child was Clark. Her 9th child was Adam. Well, this Clark Harmon has a brother named Adam. Well, Clark Harmon was a war hero. He fought in Texas for Texas independence in 1836. And remember, in the 1850 census, Jane Maness, the census taker, was Clark Harmon. So, Clark was in the Army in the Battle of San Jacinto, and so it was in the newspaper in Nashville with all their names listed and what they did. And then his name is in the paper in 1936 for the Centennial Remembrance. And then there's a really nice website, and there's a very nice museum in San Jacinto, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, in Texas. So it has my ancestor's name, and has all this information about him. And it says that he enlisted in 1836 in the Auxiliary Corps in Texas. In 1854, they gave him 640 acres of land. In 1858, he lived in Burleson County, Texas. In 1874, he lived in Decatur County, Tennessee, came back home. And in 1879, he lived in Travis County, Texas. So I was really proud of his service that he fought for Texas. But then I started looking at census records to find out about Clark Harmon. So in 1850, the box at the top is Clark Harmon, and the box at the bottom is my Jane Maness, because I want to compare what he was doing in 1850 to what she was doing. Remember, she's poor. He's a farmer. He's 33. The value of his real estate is $2,000. He has a wife named Jane Bell. Her maiden name is Bell. And they had 4 daughters, and they all attended school, except for the younger one. And there's Jane with 2 daughters and no real estate value, and Clark Harmon was the census taker. 1860, Clark is a farmer. He's gotten money from Texas. He got all that land. Maybe he sold some. Maybe he came back and bought some in Henderson County. I don't know. Value of his real estate is $12,000. Value of his personal estate is $12,000. He has 3 daughters living at home with him and his wife. Jane is a tenant. She has no real estate, no personal estate, but 1, 2, 3, 4. She has 6 children then, with Buck being the youngest one at 1 in 1860. In 1860, in the slave schedule, Clark Harmon had 10 slaves, 7 black slaves, 3 3 mulattoes. 1870, Clark is living in Decatur County in Decaturville. He's a farmer. The value of his real estate is $10,000. And this is right after the Civil War. He has $10,000 real estate, and he has a personal estate of $1,500. Jane, his wife, is 49, and they have their daughter Eliza is 25, and she's living in the home with them. They have a house carpenter who lives with them. They have a 14-year-old female domestic servant, and her last name is Harmon. And the same year, Jane Maness she finally has a little bit of money. She has a value of real estate of $200 and value of personal estate at $125. She has 5 children living with her that year. And then that's the last year that his wife, Jane, is in a census record, because 5 years later, he marries Sarah Ann Welch. And this is the 1850 census, where Clark is 62, his new wife is 29, his daughter from his first marriage is still living in the house with them, and then they have 2 daughters, ages 4 and 2. They have a farmhand living with them, and they have a 10-year-old black male servant, Sam Harmon. And Jane Maness is keeping house, and she has 4 children in her house. Okay, this is the 1880 census for agriculture, and I know you can't read it. I can't read it either, but I just wanted to show that Clark Harmon is listed with land and everything in the agriculture schedule. In 1900, Clark is 82 years old. He's classified as a landlord, and his wife is 48. In Ancestry, if you take the Ancestry test and you put your family tree in, you can look at through lines, and they will connect you with other people who have matched with you, who have their family trees, who have the same ancestors listed. So Clark Harmon has a daughter from his first wife that I matched with her descendant. He has there is a daughter from the second one you see there is a descendant from my Jane Maness's line. The next one is from his first wife, and then it shows, you see my picture, and that's my great-grandfather there that I matched with all of his descendants who've taken the test. And then I matched with descendants of Clark Maness's family, and then the next one, Clark Harmon had another daughter by another woman, and I matched with her descendants too. And then the last one is from his second wife. So I matched with descendants of everybody. His 2 wives, his 2. And so this page is to show you where, then when I click on one of those people, you can see all the different people who've taken the test. So I add these people to my family tree, and that's why you see the little blue mark at the bottom. It's because I've added them to my tree. Now, just to try to be sure that Clark Harmon was the father of Jane's children and not his brother Adam, I looked up Adam. And so Adam Harmon in 1870, he had a little money also. He had $4,000 real estate, $1,500 personal estate. And he was married, and he had a couple of children, and he had a son who was 10 years old, also named Adam. Now, you know how it's a small world? Well, Adam, the young one there, Adam Harmon, who's 10 years old in this census record, he's buried in Lexington Cemetery right behind my husband's grandparents. So you see the red box there, that's where the Harmons are buried. So I was with Butch, he was cleaning his grandparents' tombstone, so I wander back there in the back, and I'm like, Butch, these people are probably my relatives. And so then I took a day and I walked all through the old city cemetery section of the Lexington Cemetery trying to find Clark Harmon. I didn't find him. I called City Hall in Lexington a couple of days ago and talked to the lady there who takes care of this cemetery. And she said, well, when did he die? When did Clark Harmon die? And I said, 1901. She said, oh, no, I won't have a record on that. But she said, in a couple of months, there's a company coming in that they're going to go all through that cemetery. They're going to take a picture of each tombstone and record it. And I don't know where it will be listed, but that's exciting to know that's going to happen. And of course, we have Find a Grave, but they're not all listed. And so then there's a website that has the Lexington Cemetery listed, and it says that Clark and his first wife are buried in the Lexington Cemetery and that his marker is fallen. So the next time Butch and I go back over there, I'm going to go back there in the scary woods there and look around and see if there's one fallen in the ground to see if I can find his tombstone. So this is just the way that I kind of summarized everything to come up with picking Clark Harmon to try to figure out for sure that he was my ancestor. Just my uncle didn't match with Maness Man in the Y test. JR matched with a lot of them, and then Clark, that I matched with his descendants on the ancestry test, and then those different documents where they had Jane Harmon listed, they had that Harmon name in there. So my next thing is, who could take a maternal test to connect Jane Maness to her sisters and her female cousins? So I looked at Jane's daughters to see if they had daughters who had daughters. So out of this list that you probably can't see very well, the yellow boxes are people who were like the maternal descendants who could have taken the test. So the blue boxes, I've taken out their names because I don't have permission to use their names. So there are there are about 9 people who could take the test if I could talk them into it. But people that don't care about genealogy as much as I do, and you ask them to take a maternal test, it's over $200. They don't want to do it. I talked to one lady, I found her on Facebook, and I told her a little bit about genealogy, and I asked her if she would be willing to take the test. And she said, girl, I don't know half of what you just told me, and I don't want my DNA out there. So, okay, moving on. So these are the names of the ladies that I would like to find out more about them. Letitia Maness, in 1850, Celia Maness was 32, Letitia was 20, and then there's my Jane, who was 18. And then there was Wincy Ann Maness, who was 16. In the 1850 census, Celia was listed there with some children. Don't know if they were her brothers and sisters or her children. And the Letitia is listed with 4 children. Clark Harmon was the census taker. And then for Letitia Maness, this is her Find a Grave. And I know I'm friends with 3 or more people that are her descendants. And they all say her children were through Samuel Hayes. He was known as Staub Hayes. And I don't know if that's all her children listed there or they were just the ones that were listed on Find a Grave. Also in 1850, Wincy Ann Maness was 16. She was living with Mark Maness. I don't know how they're related, and I really can't read that other name to know who that was, but Clark Harmon was the census taker. And for Wincy Ann Maness, she was married to a Lindsay first. He enlisted in Jackson in the Union Army in August of 1862, and 2 months later, a citizen killed him. don't know why, but she had children by her first husband, 3 children by her first husband, and then she had at least 1 son by Samuel Staub Hayes. So in the beginning I said, either do a family tree or do a timeline. So I made a timeline to put all these people in together. I know you can't read it, but I can either sort this by their name or the year or their parents' name, all the information on there, so I can sort it out and just kind of help me determine if I have everybody listed. So my brick wall, okay, we figured out Jane Maness and Clark Harmon were the parents of Emerson Etheridge Buck Maness, but who were their parents? Who were the parents of Jane and Clark? Well, what I find online is that John Harmon and his wife Elizabeth were the parents of Clark Harmon. So I still don't know about Jane Maness, so that's something I'll still be working on for a while. On the Moore County, North Carolina website, where William Maness Jr., the patriarch, is listed with his 12 children, I just wrote in on the ones that I know where they ended up, 1 in Hawkins County, Tennessee, 2 in McNairy County, 1 in Robertson County, and then 2 stayed in Moore County, North Carolina. So it's very likely that William Nathan Maness is some way my direct ancestor, but I don't know how. So that's something I'll still be working on. So one last thing. So I said earlier that I always wanted to find out if I was Native American. Do I have Native American DNA? Yes, I do. A little bit, but I'm happy about that. So the ones that I have in yellow, that we're the ones that got a little bit of Native Americans. On the family tree DNA, it says in America Indian North Mexico that I have just almost 1%, and in Native in Amerindia Amazon, my brother got 1%, and then in Ancestry, Indigenous Americas North, my sister and I both got 1%. Our niece, my brother's daughter, got 1%. My son Spencer got 1% of Indigenous America Yucatan Peninsula. Now, my grandmother through my mother always said that we had thought we had Native American ancestors, and I think we do, but I just haven't gotten to prove it yet. I've traced us down to Lafayette County, Mississippi, and Lauderdale County, Mississippi, where the Choctaw Indians lived, and I've traced us down to the Folsom family. So that part's going to be a project that I'll still keep working on. But my Maness cousins did not get any Native American DNA, but my Haney cousins did. So my Native American DNA is actually through my daddy. So the picture in the lower corner here, John George Shepherd, is my 3rd great grandfather through my daddy. And see, I know you can't go by the way a person looks, but he sure does look like Geronimo. There was a lady in Decaturville several years ago who was doing research on the Shepherd family, and she got in touch with all of us, and she put the book together, and so she had that picture in the book. So in Ancestry, I have 1%. My sister has 1. My niece has 1. My son has 1. And then in Family Tree DNA, my brother has almost 1%. I have almost 1%. And then my first cousin, my paternal cousin, through my Haney line, he took the 23andMe test, and he got 0.1% Indigenous America. And then another Haney cousin, all our first cousins, also took the test through 23andMe, and she got 0.3%, and then her daughter also got a little bit. So if you haven't taken the Ancestry test before, this is what you'll see when you to look at the origins, because it's showing me England and Northwestern Europe 52%, Scotland 22%, Sweden and Denmark 16%, Norway 3%, Wales 3%, Ireland 3%, and Indigenous Americas North 1%. And then also, Ancestry will tell you which parent. Based on all the cousins and everybody that I match with, they can figure out which parent you got this from. So where I have that little blue line going up to the circle on the right is showing all of my origins, and then the other one, my mother's on the left side and Daddy's on the right side. So the little sliver that Daddy got down at the bottom and the little sliver I have at the top is our Native American. And that's all.